Good morning, LeadDev. So happy to be here. Today, I want to convince you that platform engineering really is all about product. But before I do that, I want to take you to a stroll down memory lane, to a time where we use terms like throwing over the fence, to the time before DevOps, to the time where organizations looked like this. And these kind of organizations had two main units. We had the devs, who worked with product management to deliver a feature quickly. And then we had the ops, who were in charge of making sure that everything's functional, that our production is not broken, and that everything is running. Now, often these two organizations, they were misaligned because they had different goals. One was measured for speed, and one was measured for uptime and quality. And that led to ineffective communication and to silos. So we, as an industry, we really wanted to solve this problem. So we thought to ourselves, how will we solve this problem? And by 2008, we invented this cool new thing called DevOps. And we were very excited about it. We said, let's take the dev organization, let's take the ops organization, merge them together, and we will have one organization, no silos, everyone can do anything. It will be magical. But the thing is that as we tried it and as we went through this DevOps transformation, we started realizing that it's not that easy. And in a recent survey, we see that only around 3% of organizations report that they do the you build it, you run it mentality, like the DevOps nirvana. Most other organizations couldn't really get there, and they default to all sorts of patterns. You can see organizations that have DevOps teams, which are a third silo between the dev and the ops team. And you can see organizations that actually just let go of ops entirely. They do what is called shadow ops. They let the senior devs take care of the operation from within the devs. So not only is not everyone in the team able to build and run it, it's only the senior ones, but they're actually wasting their most useful resources, their best engineers, on maintaining production rather on delivering value to their customers. But really, what we most often see is, again, organizations that look like this. We have the dev organization, ready to build features, and we have what used to be called ops organization, but is now rebranded as a DevOps organization, which is doing the exact same thing and has the exact same misalignments. 10 years later, we still wanted to solve this problem. We took a look at Google, who in the early 2000s invented this cool thing called SRE. And by 2018, everyone was keen on doing this cool new thing. Hey, everyone, let's do SRE. Now, what is SRE? SRE, Site Reliability Engineering, basically is a set of rules, methodologies, metrics that if you'll follow, you'll be able to have those two different organizations, the devs and the new ops, which are the SRE, but they can share goals, they can share a roadmap, and they can get to solving the same problem without miscommunications. But as organizations try to adopt this SRE mentality, they realized that being Google is not so easy, because most organizations didn't adopt all the methodologies and all the metrics and all the tools. They just took their ops, or now called DevOps organization, changed the name to SRE, and they were left with the same problems, just with a different name. But now it's not 2008, it's not 2018, it's 2023, everybody. Let's do platform engineering. Yeah. Now, what is platform engineering? Platform engineering is basically saying, let's build an IDP, an internal developer platform, that will take some cognitive load off of our developer. It will make building stuff and running stuff easier, so the rest of the developers in our company can achieve this DevOps nirvana, because building and running stuff isn't as complicated as it used to be before. Another question that I want to answer in this session is basically, how do we avoid this? How in 2 years from now, there isn't another cocky engineering manager on stage here instead of me saying, yeah, we tried platform engineering, it didn't really work. Now let's try vector engineering, which is the whole new thing, and it will be amazing. And we'll just do this loop again. So before I answer this question, I just want to quickly introduce myself. Hi, everyone. My name is Bashan, and I'm the head of engineering at Hexagon, which was recently acquired by Cisco. Now, I'm very passionate about value-driven development, which is meaning that every team in my organization, I want them to be able to contribute directly to business value and not just release features or go through their backlog. I want them to clearly see the connection of the value that they're creating to the organization. And we worked really hard to perfect that in Hexagon, me and my product counterparts, and we found that the hardest place to do it is with platform teams. Other than that, I really love bouldering, so if you're into that, come see me at the office hours as well. And let's get into it. OK, so what we're going to talk about today is a few things. First of all, we'll discuss what is a platform engineering team and why is it there and what are its goals. We'll talk about how do we know if a platform engineering team is effective. Then, once we'll establish the importance, we'll talk about what kind of problems platform engineering teams should solve, what kind of solutions and how do they come up with solutions, and finally, how are they going about building those solutions. But let's start with the goals. So the goal of a platform engineering organization, first and foremost, is enablement. We want to enable the rest of the developers in our company through golden paths and paved roads, which is a fancy name for standardized tooling or easy way of doing things, basically to accelerate development, take cognitive load off, develop in a more secure way or cost-effective way. Now, enablement as a title is kind of hard to measure. We need to know what are the metrics that we're tracking in order to make sure that we're on the right path. And there are three main areas that we can measure our platform against to know if we're actually helping the company. First one is security. If we're helping our developers build the same thing with the same cognitive load, but in a more secure way, then we've given value to the company. Because if the product is more secure, then the company is less likely to be exposed to risks. The other thing is cost. If the developers can build the same thing with the same cognitive load for less of a cost, then it's clear value to the company because we're saving money. The third and most ambiguous term is developer experience. And this can be a bit harder to measure or to understand what it is. And we can measure developer experience in several ways. We can talk about cycle time, which is how long it takes for us from when we start developing something until it's live in production. We can talk about MTTR, mean time to resolve. How long does it take from when an incident begins until it is resolved in production? We can talk about PR release or PR frequency or release frequency, which is how often we actually get stuff out into production. But recently, in recent studies, we understand the developer experience is affecting much more of this. Recent studies actually show a link between developer experience to attrition. Now, this is not to say that if you have amazing developer experience, no one will ever leave your company. But it is to say that if you have a very bad developer experience, you are more likely to see attrition and people leaving your company. So now we've established that the teams are important and how we know if they're functioning correctly. Let's talk about how these things actually work. How do they identify which problems in the organization they should solve? How do they identify what value they should provide? And to do that, I want to start with a story. And this story is not going to be the general, we have a platform team that is running the Kubernetes cluster story, because platform and DevOps is way, way broader than that. So I kind of chose the niche example on purpose. And this example is from a time in Hexagon when we were around 10 engineers. We didn't have a fully fledged platform team yet. Actually, we didn't have a team yet. We were just 10 engineers. But what we did have was one senior engineer with a bit of time on his hands and a passion to solve a problem. And as I don't know if I mentioned it before, but Hexagon was a monitoring company. We were doing a lot of observability and working with distributed traces, and a lot of data was streaming into our system. And since it was completely serverless and relied a lot of Lambda, we also relied a lot of Amazon Kinesis, which is kind of Amazon's answer to Kafka. It's a serverless data stream that helps you move data from point A to point B. And the pain that this developer was trying to solve is that whenever we tried to debug data within those streams, we always had to deploy something to the cloud. We couldn't solve it locally. We couldn't debug it locally. So he decided to tackle this, and it took around 5 days to build this very cool tool, which lets you fork the data into your local machine, view it, run code against it, debug it. And we were pretty excited about it. He shared it on Slack. We waited 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. No one really used it. And when we ask ourselves why did no one use this tool, we started asking our people around, and we realized that it wasn't really a problem. It just wasn't a problem for the organization. It was just a problem for the developer. Everyone was fine with debugging on the cloud. Deploying a Lambda took less than 1 minute. And even if you did want to debug locally, if you wanted to write something tailor-made and not generic, you could just write like 5 lines of Python code and you'll have the data in your computer. So what we learned here very early on is that we're trying to improve the developer experience, and we're talking about platform. We need to come with a problem-first mindset. It's not enough to come with a solution that I want to build, but I want to make sure that the problem that I'm solving is actually a problem that developers in my organization have. Okay, so what kind of problems can my developers have? They can be spending a lot of time on infrastructure. They can be struggling to find code around their repositories. They cannot know who owns this code ownership, right? They can have problems with observability. There are a lot of different areas where they can have problems. So how do I know where to start? What kind of problems out of all these possible problems do my organization have? And the easy answer is that I just ask my developers. Because my developers know what problems they have. If I'll ask them, if I'll follow them, pair with them for a week or two, I'll start seeing those problems that come up again and again and again, and I'll know that if I'll solve these problems, I can create value within my organization. So now we know what problems we want to solve. And the next step is actually solving them, proposing solutions. And this should be the part that we're good at, right? We're engineers. Our strong suit is finding cool and innovative solutions to solve really hard problems. But the thing is that this is also a drawback. Because if we're not careful, when we use those new and innovative cool technology, we might end up with a solution that looks something like this. Because we're really interested in using Kubernetes, and we're really interested in using this cool new vector database, and we really think that this new automation tool can help us. And what we end up is building a Rube Goldberg machine instead of a small platform that actually caters to our user needs. Because let's face it, most of our platform engineers are usually the best engineers that we have, because platform is hard. So if we let our platform engineers think of the solution, they'll think of a solution that our best engineers can use. But it's not necessarily the solution that our average engineer can use, because it's just not a good fit for them. So even when we're thinking on the solution, we need to make sure that we're putting the user value, the usability, the viability first, that we're not looking at the cool technology, that we're not just interested in using buzzwords, but that we're actually coming back to the developer after we validated the problem, and we also validate the solution. Hey, this is how I want to solve this problem. Will this work for you? Does this make sense? Okay, so now we've validated our problems and we validated our solution. We're definitely on the right track to creating value in our organization. And this is exactly the situation I was in when I was leading a team in the IDF right before my time in Hexagon. The IDF, the Israeli Defense Force, I was leading a team within a larger group, and this group was focused on products in a very specific domain, and each team worked on kind of the same thing, but with a different vendor. Every vendor has its own quirks and had its own styles and had its own APIs. But the product domain was the same. And we had a problem that we had a lot of costs starting up new projects because we bootstrapped it from zero all the time. Even though the domains were pretty similar, we had to reinvent the wheel every time. So this was a clear problem in the organization. Everyone agreed about it. And the next thing that we tried to do was think up of a solution. And what we came up with is that we should create a framework that is kind of the framework for our domain, and that every project can adopt it and tailor it to its needs, but it will save a lot of the time. And we were very excited about it. We talked with all the existing projects. Everyone said, validated the solution. It makes sense. They were eager to use it. So we took 2 of our best engineers. They spent like 6 months building it because it was a really complex framework. It was very, very, algorithmic and intensive. And at the end, they integrated it to their home project, and it worked flawlessly. It was a great success. Then they tried to integrate it to the next project, and what they found out was that it just wasn't a good match. It was pretty annoying because there was missing a lot of must-haves, and there were a lot of unnecessary complexity, and the next project really struggled with adoption. We ended up with half of the project adopting it after struggling, half of them never adopting it. And the question is what we did wrong there. Because we had a good problem, we had a validated solution, so where did we go wrong? Why did it still not work? And the reason is that we forgot that even if we're talking about a platform deal, Agile is still valid. It's still something that we need to consider. Agile is not reserved just for product and user-facing teams. Had we talked to the other projects every week, every month, showed them incremental value delivery, they would have let us know very early on that we were not in the right track. And we could have corrected our course rather than wait 6 months only to discover that we have built a monster that no one actually wants to use. So let's recap so far. We talked about how we should build this IDP, how we should build our platform. And we talked about the fact that in order to do that, we need a good problem validation, a good solution validation, iterative development, breaking it down to pieces, talking to the customers who are our users and interacting with them. There are a lot of stuff we didn't cover. We need to go to market. After we met our first, second, and third team, when we were talking about reaching our 100th team, we need a strategy. We need a way to get the word out to the rest of the company. Now, those are skills that don't normally characterize the normal engineering leader. Engineering leaders are more focused on technical leadership, on project management, on growing their people. These are skills that are not their strongest suit. But there is a person in the organization who has those skills exactly. And this person is a product manager. And I hope that by now, I've convinced you that not only do you need product skill in order to build a successful platform, but a product person can actually be of very help. So you're going to go back to your engineering leader or to your product leader in your organization and say, hey, I want us to hire a product manager for our platform team. And then you're probably going to hear one of those 4 things. And those 4 things are not good reasons, in my opinion, not to have a product manager, and I want to walk through why. First one is, well, the platform usage is mandatory. There's no need for a product manager because everyone's going to use the platform anyway. I'm just going to tell them to. This is not a good reason because we all had our share of experience with enterprise tools. And we hate 90% of them, all those tools that we must use because our company uses them. And the reason that we hate 90% of them is because these tools rob themselves of the very best metrics to improve themselves, which is usage and adoption. If we will mandate the usage of our platform rather than measure ourselves against the usage and adoption of it, we'll rob ourselves of the exact same metrics, meaning that instead of building something that actually takes cognitive load off of our developers and help them, we'll just build another tool that will be forced on them and pushed on them, and they'll have to deal with. Second one is that platform is internal to engineering, so engineering managers can do it. It's fine. And we already talked about this. These are not the skills that engineering managers possess. Just because, engineering managers are very busy with working on additional stuff. They are some of the most highest load individuals within the company. They're busy with maintaining their team and retaining their people. They're busy with technical leadership. They are busy with project management. They don't have the time to also take care of all the product aspects of the platform. And even if they did, just assuming that anyone can wake up one day and become an amazing product manager, that just shows that we're not giving enough credit or understanding of how important and how hard it is to acquire these product skills. Because those are skills that the product community has been working on in the last 30 years to perfect. And assuming that we can just wake up and be the best product manager in the world, that just means that we don't really understand what product management is. Next, we're probably going to hear that, look, you're a developer. You know what developer wants. Just go ahead and build that. Now, if that logic was not flawed, then companies like Elasticsearch, Mongo, or Grafana wouldn't have had any product managers at all, because those are developers facing product. But the reason that those companies are successful is because they have very good product management. Because the product manager can't just build what one developer wants. He needs to look at all of the developers and take all of their opinions and way of working into consideration and consolidate that into one product that is actually working. That is not something that I can just take my opinion, build it, and everything will be okay, because then the platform will be a fit only for me and not for anyone else. And finally, he's probably going to say, he or she is probably going to say, look, this is a very nice idea. I sympathize with you, really, but we just don't have the headcount. We can't afford the one additional product manager rec. In this case, what I would advise you is to tell your leader, look, we are at a risk of having our platform team, which is 2, 5, 30, 100 engineers, doing something that is not valuable for the company. If we really can't spare the one extra resource, then we should just take all of those resources and split them up into the different product groups, just so they work on something that is valuable for the company with much higher certainty. The only exception for this is probably very small startups that really don't have the capacity to bring on any more people. It's not like they have a team. It's not like they have a product platform team. They just have developers who want to help other developers and make their life easier. In that case, maybe you can let go and not have a dedicated PM, but make sure that the engineer that you choose to lead this product effort is not your best technical engineer. It's the engineer that has the most connection to user need, business understanding, product skills. This is what you should look for when you're looking for your platform organization leader. Finally, I hope that by now you all agree that the IDP, the internal developer platform, and let's stop calling it a platform because it is a product, so it is a product. And like any good product that we want our company to produce, it should have a good product manager. So if there are any takeaways I want you to take from my talk, here they are. IDP, it's a platform that should enable the rest of our developer. It should streamline their work. It should take cognitive load off of them. It shouldn't be some mandatory tool that they have to use and put additional problems in their hands. If we want to know what problems IDP should solve, we just have to ask our developers. They know what kind of problems we should solve. And when we approach to building our IDP, we need to start with what problems we want to solve and not with what we want to build. Next, even when we get to the solution, we still need to validate them. And we don't just have to validate them with the users and the developers in our company in the beginning, but we have to, again and again, iteratively release small value and test them with the developers in a company to make sure that it is indeed valuable for them. And finally, when you're building your IDP, if you have a good product manager on your side, it can be much of an aid and it will lead you to build a much more valuable thing for your organization. Thank you, everybody.